I'm just reading. How is Megan?
I'm doing okay, considering everything. How's everyone? Are people slowly showing up there?
There's more people in the room than I've seen since probably February.
Yeah, we got the other 6 board members, our whole admin team, and then we've got 3 people in the audience. So
Oh, all right.
that's good. All 3 are employees.
We have 13 people.
Yep, 13. That's better than our normal numbers the last few months, right?
Yeah.
All right, are you ready?
Yep.
We get
Yes.
6:30. You ready to go? All right.
I'd like to call the meeting to order if I could. Megan, can you do roll?
Sure. Andrews,
Here.
Bowden,
Here.
Collins,
Here.
Henderman, here, Paul,
Here.
Schrader,
Here.
White. Here. Thank you all for speaking up. I can hear, but it might be a little muted, so Aaron, I might have to ask for help
At
once in
any
a while.
time, you bet.
Good motion.
All right, thanks, Megan. Proof of giving public meeting notice, Aaron?
Yep, notices were posted at both schools and sent to the village of Dickeyville and Cuba City City Hall, as well as sent to all of our local members of the media who requested it on Tuesday, July 14th.
Okay. Is there any public recognition?
Nope, then I've got him on the agenda.
Item 4, consideration of the consent agenda. Are there any items A through D that you'd like pulled for further discussion? Otherwise, if there are none, would somebody move?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. That was
Chuck?
Paul. Yeah. Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Henderman, yes, Paul,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. For the administrative reports, so Megan can hear it, we'll
Then we'll have you guys come up here and I'll turn around so you can see him too, Megan.
Okay. The first
Thank
report,
you. Thank you, everyone.
Ellie's gonna give the middle school, high school.
This
Report.
Second.
Sure.
Is that good? Can you see me? Hi, Megan.
Hello.
Okay. Okay, so here we go. Graduation planning is taking place, going well. We will be ready on July 31st. Excited about it. We just hope, cross your fingers, that we don't have rain. If we do, we will bring it inside and space it all out inside if needed, but hopefully we can be outside. We were able to space it out where each graduate was able to bring, to invite 6 guests and still have the space that we need. And we're going to request that the guests wear face coverings, because if they do, they can be within 3 feet of each other per the CDC requirements. So if they choose not to or don't want to wear face masks, then they get 4 guests instead of 6. So their space, obviously they'd have more room between them and the next group. Other things that we're planning and working through, I know Mr. Holzemer is working on a senior athletic event to be August 9th. It's a Sunday. We wanted it a certain number of days away from graduation and after graduation and not prior, for the purpose of the students being in the same location. And so that's what we're planning. We haven't shared that date with the students yet. We have just decided it in the last little bit, but I want to let you guys know that's what we're planning. Activities code meeting, we are planning for August 3rd, which has always been the date that we had planned for that. We are going to do this virtually, and to get the information needed to parents. So whenever we are able to start activities, which we're not 100% sure on that yet, we will be ready to go and the information will be out there to our families. Teachers have been coming in this month to do some of their time to put books away that students had returned, as well as get their rooms situated a little bit from cleaning and from just leaving so quickly in March. We continue to work on updating our handbooks for all the buildings and for students and staff. We continue to spend time reviewing guidance from all of the organizations such as CDC, DHS, Grant County, ASA, any information we're given, those are the types of things we're doing on reopening and best ways to do that. Our administrative team has reviewed the DPI resource that was given, and we actually broke that up into 9 categories. And we are doing, and this might be part of your report, we are doing committees. It was volunteer committees of staff, parents, and students that wanted to be a part of that and talk about the different elements within the DPI report so we can really be thoughtful and get ideas and brainstorm together, which those meetings are going really well. And I'm really enjoying the conversation, and it's really spurring great ideas for all of us to have a better handle on the planning that we're continuing to do. I have been researching, watching webinars to gain knowledge on many areas around education, whether it's virtual learning or just dealing with curriculum and standards in the crunched situation that we're in where they maybe didn't get as much. So those are the types of things I'm doing. July 1st, the teachers were given access to 3 modules for their summer PD. These modules are from, it's called the ISTE, and this is International Society for Technology and Education, and they're called the Digital Learning Pathways. So they're doing 3 modules on using technology in learning, and the first one is called the Empowered Learner, and it has to have some great information on using technology and helping students really know how to apply that technology and engaging them and motivating them in whatever setting you're in, whether it's virtual or face-to-face. So that's meant, because the admin team, we're doing those modules as well. So I've been working through those, and so our staff has started that as well. Mrs. Wilberding applied for a grant, and we're super excited about this, and was granted, she got it. And it is called the Rapid Response COVID-19 Grant through NEA, and it's a little over $4,000. And the focus of it is to work with our special ed department and come up with plans and procedures for students to try to make it as equitable as possible, and work with them to create individual plans for kids in an online setting if we need to, and just using that then to create a clear plan for expectations with all staff and support caregivers. And we're looking forward to that work. So the grant will pay for collaboration time and research for 8 certified staff and 16 hours total, and up to 3 non-certified staff. So that's what the grant entails. And that work has started, and Deb, I know, is a big part of that as well. And so we're really excited about that work. It's good. And I want to thank Ben and Brian for being so responsive with everything. A lot of questions come up, and we just kind of say, hey, what about this? And they've been so great to work with. So I just want to thank them for that. I also want to thank Mr. Holzmer, Mr. Budden, Miss Budden, and all of our coaches for working on the plans to be able to open our facilities in small groups of kids. And it's so good to see kids in the school using the fitness center and using the gym, and it's been awesome. And they're doing a really nice job of following the expectations in order for us to be able to do that. So thank you to all of them as well. And then the last thing I want to say, we all want kids in the room in this school. And so Mr. Lutz and I, we both want to take this opportunity to thank the board for wanting to do what's best for our students' mental and emotional health by doing everything we can to support the opening face-to-face, while knowing we're going to have to take a lot of extra steps for safety. So we really appreciate that. And we also want to thank Aaron for putting his heart and soul into opening and figuring out how to do it safely, and doing all the meetings he does to gain that information, sharing it with us, and working well as a unit to figure this out, because we're only at the tip of it trying to figure it out with this much summer left. knowing we're gonna have to make adjustments. So Mr. Lutz and I both wanna thank everybody for all that.
You're welcome. Any questions of Ellie? All right, thank you, Ellie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad, elementary.
Mine will be quicker because three of the things that I was gonna talk about. She, touched upon, doesn't write this out.
If you want some of
Just
mine,
write
you can
this
keep
in the other. I'll be okay.
You'll be okay.
Just real quick.
So how's summer school going?
Awesome. Touch on that in just a second too. A couple things at the elementary level. Our grab and goes are ready. We're just waiting on some emergency contact information as soon as we hire our new 4K teacher and offsite 4K teacher and the interns that we're gonna be using at the elementary level. So those, Jesse has been working incredibly hard on and has those in place. Speaking of 4K, we've received several calls from families that are not originally on our census, seeking to enroll their 4-year-old, especially in the offsite program. They learned this opportunity through word of mouth. Majority of them already attend Country Care for their daily daycare, and some of them will be open enrollments. So the fact that by partnering with them, I think we're going to bring additional funds into our school district, which is great. So we're really excited to have this community partnership and the opportunity for the community of Dickeyville to feel even more welcome into our Cuba City School District. And we'll be conducting interviews for that 4K teacher in the very near future. We also have our elementary handbooks nearly completed for review. We have done an overhaul of a number of policies, information, and just the overall layout to try and make it align to more of what the middle school, high school handbook looks like, so that as people transition from the elementary level to the middle and high school, that it flows a lot smoother. So we want to send a huge thank you to Ellie and Pam Tranel for putting together such a concise yet all-inclusive handbook at their level that gave us a great framework to adjust ours. Summer school's in session. We have roughly 50 to 60 students participating in various enrichment and remedial courses. We're incredibly thankful for all the staff members who stepped up at one point to transport briefly and also teach and support students during this challenging time. The positive impact that they're having is not just on academic achievement, but also the social emotional well-being of all the students. I know the last few days I've been out as parents are picking children up, and just the excitement in the adults that their kids have the opportunity to interact with their friends and be around their peers. So thank you to all of you. I know Ellie mentioned that earlier, but I wanted to share that as well. I'm going to echo, I can't say thanks enough to the work of our custodial and maintenance staff, not just to make our schools look so good. I know they had some time in the spring that they normally wouldn't have to get things in order. But when we made the decision to go ahead with summer school, there wasn't a whole lot of time for them to make sure all the rooms were properly equipped, and we had desks moved out of the way so that we could have everything socially distanced and everything in place, and just a magnificent job by their entire staff. And then the last thing I have for you is that we're really excited to review applicants for the elementary intern positions and begin interviewing them as well in the near future. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for both the college students to gain valuable experience and have an opportunity to work with children, but also it's going to be huge for us as a school to allow us to have appropriate class sizes, proper spacing, and provide quality instruction. So thank you for your willingness to let us participate in that as well.
At this point, what class sizes are you looking at trying to maintain for fall?
We're looking at taking the current grade level class sizes and basically, instead of splitting them in two, splitting them into three. So at some grade levels, that'll be close to like 11 or 12. Some grade levels will be a little bit higher, closer to 16, depending on the number of kids that we have at each grade level.
So space wise, room wise, how is that going to look?
Yeah,
take advantage of the
GBI
science room.
has backed off the 10 people per room.
Yeah,
Because some rooms are bigger than others, and our rooms are good size.
right now we have roughly 10 desks in every summer school room with extra space between desks, so they're further than 6 feet apart. So we can fit even a few more in, and, you know, like Aaron mentioned, anytime we're under that space, the current recommendation is that we just would have a face covering them. So if you and I were to work closer than we are right now, I would put a mask on so that we're protected.
Other questions?
Could you repeat again, Brett, how many summer school students we do have?
We're right between 50 and 60. We had 45 on Monday, and word got out that we were having summer school, and we've progressively added students each day this week.
I thought we had 68 on the summer school list
We did, and then we had some people that
that dropped out.
and declined, and we had some that were in courses that we couldn't offer because we couldn't use high school
Sorry,
facilities.
I told Dan 68 because he asked, and I pulled that document up.
Yeah. So we've had a handful that didn't feel comfortable sending their student for whatever reason, and others that are now filling it. So if you need a more accurate number, I can
No, I was
send
just,
you one.
you had said it and I didn't catch it.
Yeah.
And then I have a question, how many applicants do you have for the
We have
intern?
4, I believe. We got one while we were in our meeting, so I think we have five.
And we're hoping to hire 5.
And I asked about the math, and
Yeah.
they don't have one.
Nobody goes into high school math anymore.
Other questions? Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Deb, special ed?
Having all kinds of problems.
While Deb's transitioning here, just want to let you know, we do have Dr. Keeter, who is from Southwest Health. And I invited him to come in and just kind of share his experience and what he's seen with COVID-19 in the field. And so when he buzzes in, I'll let everybody know. At that time, I would suggest that we just kind of pause where we are, let Dr. Keeter share some of his things, and then pick up where we are at that point.
So going third, mine will be super short. June 29th through July 2nd, Mr. Olson, Mrs. Olson, Mr. Lutz, and I participated in a 4-day training with the lead teachers on differentiation. And that's something we want to work on this year, so that it's not just special ed, regular ed, it's everybody's students, and what can we all do to make a difference and make learning more unique to students' needs versus this is how we deliver our instruction. It's been long in coming, and I'm really glad we got to participate in that. And with the summer school, we did have a few special ed students. Because of the timing and everything, you know, we wanted to reach out to parents and offer something for special ed students. So we did make some connections, and were able to provide some individualized summer support for students in special ed. They maybe don't go the whole time, depending on their needs. Some do go the whole time, but we wanted to make sure that those students had what they needed in the summer as well. A lot of this month, as the other administrator said, is working on prepping for the fall. We're gonna have to redo staff schedules, student schedules, and that's very time consuming, and it's a domino effect. I'm leading the special ed and the EL, which is English Language Learners Committees, and also working with Mrs. Wilberding on the grant funding. We just met today, and we've grouped out and kind of have a timeline and want to get what we come up with to the rest of the administrators before we produce our final decision on what we should do to reopen, because a lot of this fits into that reopening scenario or procedures and protocol. So a lot of my time too has been spent on a couple of things that are unique to the closure. So when we closed in March, we had just had preschool screening, and we usually have a handful of students that are referred for early childhood or speech or occupational therapy. And there was just no way we could do that because we couldn't enter the school. So we went ahead and got our permissions for those students. We talked to parents, we communicated with them and let them know that as soon as we can get the students in, we'll get them tested. At the very least, we would want to get them tested when school opens in the fall. And with the opening now, we were able to get all of the initial evaluations contacted, and we're gonna bring them in, get them tested, because we want these little people to be ready to roll in the fall if they have speech needs or early childhood needs. So that's our priority, is to get them evaluated. And then as far as reevaluations, since those students are already receiving services, we'll focus on them when school starts again. So today we had our first student in, and all parents were comfortable bringing the students in. We'll do that on the other side of the building, and it won't interfere with summer school. The other thing that you'll probably hear about is what's called additional services. So even though we provided services virtually to all of our special ed students, because of the circumstances at home, or technology, or language, or 7 people at home are on devices and we're having internet problems or logging in problems, there were just issues. So because of the virtual situation, we need to look at every student in special ed in the first 6 months from their return to school. So once we physically get back in the building, we need to look at these students and decide what were the barriers. Did they lack progress towards their goals or not make progress towards their goals? OT and PT is something that was really hard to deliver virtually. So we need to look at every student and decide, do they need additional support services or something new just because of the fact that this was a virtual situation? Do they need something written into their IEP in case we go into a virtual situation again? So those are things that are really consuming my time, because I want to do it right. I want to have the right things in place for our staff and train them in how to do that, so that kids get what they need. And I think that was it.
Any questions of Deb? Thank you, Deb.
Those additional services, Deb, that was for kids that already had an IEP?
Yes, yeah. Or actually, this one's a little harder for me to quite get my head around, but and we don't have a student in this case, but if we referred a student, ours are all early childhood or 3-year-olds, they wouldn't have started until fall anyway. But if there would have been a student out there who was in the process of a new referral and we couldn't do it, then we're supposed to figure out what progress they could have made had they gotten the services when they would have been identified if we weren't closed. So that doesn't really.
That's tough.
Yeah. Fortunately, we don't have to do that one, so.
Thank you.
All right,
All right. Thank you, Deb.
thank you.
Buildings and grounds, Ben?
Bear with me now.
Well, this is the building and grounds update. Basically, Aaron and I talked, and we feel that it would be best kind of every few months to just kind of give an update of what's happening on and within the buildings.
Can you hear him?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you
Okay.
fine.
First, I want to thank the board for the opportunity for me to take this position. I take it very seriously. I want to thank Aaron for allowing me to do my job. Chuck for only being a phone call away when I have a question or something, comes up in a pinch, and it's just nice to rattle a question off and get some answers. And Heather for being my financial person, whether I get the yes or no or don't even bother to go ask. When I took over the building and grounds, there was 3 big things that I really wanted that I've always really thought we could utilize. And working with Aaron and Heather, those 3 things, came to fruition. First, we got a loader for the small tractor. Saves back, saves wear and tear. We really didn't realize how much it helped until we started doing all these projects around here. The other thing is I wanted to get a driving floor scrubber. And it's quieter. You barely hear the thing running through the hallways compared to the old thing that was out there. Much more efficient, time saving wise. Saves wear and tear on the staff. And lastly, what we're trying to do is working on implementing of cleaning the gym floor between JV and varsity events. We figure it only takes maybe 3-4 minutes to do the floor. So between those games, you know, wouldn't really have to dry mop it. You go out there, it dries it. You don't even know what's on there. You know, and just give a new fresh surface every time. And the third thing is obviously it's sitting right there. That's our new pride and joy, basically. If you get the opportunity and see Nick or Jessica Lightfried, thank them. They worked within the budget amount that we had set, and Nick gave me a phone call and said, "Do you mind if we go and do some of our own personal touches?" Said, "This is what we have set. I can't go anymore." So when he sent me the pictures, I was actually very shocked of how it turned out. They did the paint, the decals, added lights in the front and on the back, put a brush guard, rear view mirrors, side mirrors. And our hopes is that we find a cure for this and we can use it to lead the football team out on the field for their home games. You know, and even use it for senior night, stuff like that. There's just so many opportunities for it. It's very proud to have it. Next, we're kind of going to go over the completed project because I'm sure as you've seen, there's been a lot going on around here. And there's still, you know, I told Aaron, I said, it's going to look like a rock quarry around here with all, you know, everyone's asking what's the rock for, what's this and that. So our first really completed project is the cooler freezer alarm here at the high school. The old system would only let you know if you were actually physically in the building by the kitchen. So if it happened, if the freezer went down on a Sunday night, nobody knew about it until Janet came in Sunday morning or Monday morning. The new system, now it sends out a text, email to Aaron, me, we know it. We know it instantly. If it fails for a certain amount of time, we're up here, we can get it taken care of. Therefore, you're not losing food, money. We had the freezer and the cooler gone over by the same company that installed it. We're not having freeze ups anymore. It's running much more efficiently. All in all, you know, really good. Second thing that we got completed is, I don't know if you noticed, it's much brighter in the library. We installed over 2,600 light bulbs throughout the whole school. The elementary school is completely 100% LED. The high school, I think the only portion that's not LED is the lights up in the hallway by the office and the wrestling room. But everything else, we've gotten rid of the ballasts, you know, huge energy consumption savings, and there's no loss of lumens over the life of the bulb. You turn it on, it's the same brightness as day one versus day 10,000. We increased the brightness in key areas like the cafeteria, library, shops. You know, took the time to take apart the fixtures, clean them. You know, it's just huge difference, especially if you go down in the shop. And even Mr. Kopp said he may not have to use glasses anymore. We'll wait to see if that's true or not. But the other nice thing is life expectancy is 10 years on them. And they do offer a very good focus on energy rebate that we're in the process of filling out and sending in. I think I'll have it in by tomorrow, actually. Next thing that we took care of is the water issue by the cafeteria, Lake Cuba City, we always call it, right out there. What that does is that actually infiltrates, goes underneath the school and leaks into the old locker room. Now, what we've done is we've installed gutters on that section of the school. And I put a drain tile from this drain, wrapped it all the way around the building, and it actually exits out into the parking lot. Since we've done that, not one drop down in the basement. And last year there were times where we had almost 3.5 inches of water just pouring in there, where we had to sandbag it into the drains, and it was just, you know, a mess. That leads us into the dirt piles. That's where the dirt's going. Once we get, you know, every time we want to start it, it rains, and then it's like, can't go in there. And our goal is to have it spread and seeded and looking nice for graduation. That's our goal. Ceiling tiles. If you leave and you look down to the tech ed band room and out here, we replaced all the ceiling tiles in there. Some of them had dates of 1981 on the backside of them. So just kind of brightened everything up, replaced the ones in the teacher's lounge. And then we put some school spirit on the ones over by Senior Hall. We painted some of the tiles black and gold. the Gaga pits down at the elementary school. Worked with Mr. Lutz last year about getting them repositioned so that both of them are on cameras, so that if need be, something happened, they could see it. And then what we did was we actually installed gravel underneath it, put horse mats down, and put them on top. And I'm pretty sure he's been happier with the amount of dirt that hasn't been tracked into the school. I know the custodians are happy.
Sue's real happy about that.
Yes, and then we just completed putting a border around the backside of it, so none of the gravel will erode away. Outside bleachers. We installed a silk fence at the bottom, because I don't know if you ever noticed, there's always a mud going across the track issue. And we put 90 yards of big stone, which is equivalent to 6 dump truck loads, and 60 yards smaller, which equals 4 loads. The high school students that we had working for us were not very happy with us because they had to sit underneath there and basically in some areas hand put them down into it. But some of the spots I told Aaron, the erosion was 4 feet.
Much longer to do that. Should we just pause?
Yeah, we can pause, it's fine.
Hello, Dr. Keeter.
Hi, Aaron. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see you again.
You as well. So, we just kind of paused the meeting. We'll pick up after your part. We want to respect your time and have some just general questions for you. So I'll just kind of give them to you up front, and then we can kind of tackle them one at a time if you want to. But I think the board's really interested to just get the overall view on the COVID-19 effect in Southwest Wisconsin, and obviously Southwest Health gets a lot of those cases there. Also, we purchased masks and shields for all students, and we just want to hear your take on, what are the pros and cons of going with mandatory usage of some type of face covering versus strongly suggested, which is what some people are doing. Also, if you have any information on, the transfer of virus from children to adults in indoor or outdoor settings, anything that you've seen. And finally, just any general school recommendations from your doctor lens. So just so everybody knows, Dr. Keeter, I actually had an appointment with Dr. Keeter just this week, so we got to talk about this a little bit. But he is actually from Platteville, and he did his undergrad at the Air Force Academy, got his medical degree at Uniformed Services of Health Services in Bethesda, Maryland, and did his residency in Elgin Air Force, and was actually a doctor on Air Force One, which had to be quite an experience. So that's the lens of the doctor that we're hearing from today, for those who don't know Dr. Keeter. So I'll hand it over to you, and I believe everybody can hear the volume's high enough, so take it away.
Good. So please let me know if you can't hear me. I think everything seems to be working just fine with the connection here. So you listed quite a few different questions. I think we can certainly tackle those one by one and try to address any other questions that you have. Obviously, the COVID pandemic here has been something that's affected all facets of life and had a great impact on both community settings, school settings, hospital settings, and we put a lot of things in place over the past 4 or 5 months now to kind of deal with this, both in the way of infection control and then also different avenues for treatment of people who have respiratory illnesses or presumed or proven coronavirus. So I think a lot of the things that we'll touch on here, certainly are hand in hand with that. Right now, what I can tell you after looking at just some of the most up-to-date data, which is things that I think a lot of people are looking at, these days, the information that's coming out from like the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. Grant County is an area that's still considered a high activity area, as are the surrounding counties here. So there is certainly coronavirus here that's present in the communities. We definitely have the advantage here in Southwest Wisconsin of living in a place that has small communities that are more geographically separated from one another compared to a lot of more urban environments. So that's definitely an advantage, but it doesn't necessarily totally eliminate the risk in any particular setting. So with that as, just sort of a general introduction, maybe we can talk about some of those specific questions that you had and get a little bit further into the details that you're interested in.
You bet. Yeah, that was good. That was kind of the overall the view from healthcare. The next one is we're going to have to make a decision here in August on face coverings and face shields. We did purchase a white cotton mask for all of our students, and you can tell a lot of us are wearing the face shields. And we know generally that the face masks protect other people from you fairly well, and face shields protect you from other people, is what was being said. This changes all the time. But, some schools and counties are going towards mandatory face coverings where others are just doing strongly suggested. So I'd love to hear your take on that.
Sure. So I think that the virus itself, it seems to be fairly well understood at this point to be mainly an illness that's passed with respiratory droplets. So that's why the face masks tend to be pretty high yield in terms of preventing respiratory droplets from both transmitting from a person who might have the illness, but also from being inhaled in to a person who might be in close proximity or contact with the person who has the illness. So I think face masks are probably the highest yield item there. Face shields or other forms of face covering definitely would add an additional barrier for protection, but probably not as important or practical in a widespread sense, I would imagine. So for example, here in the hospital, when we have a patient who has symptoms that might be consistent with the illness, we're using full protective gear to include face mask. That's a higher level, face mask than the standard, surgical covering. Face shield, full gown and glove, protective equipment. But for a routine patient without symptoms, we're going with surgical face mask alone and having the patient wear a face mask alone. So it seems like that's probably a little bit more in line with most of the interactions that people would have in a school setting, presuming that there's some screening that's taking place and information that are keeping ill people out of the setting in the first place. Probably face masks are going to be the highest yield, and face shields definitely would add a little bit onto that, but probably not a lot onto that. Some of the important things I think in terms of preventing illness also are going to go along with the social distancing guidelines, which 6 feet is what everyone has heard, and that still is the recommendation. So setting up things within the school environment in the way of both classrooms, communal kind of settings like a gymnasium, cafeteria, stuff like that, hallways, and all those kinds of places, trying to maintain that distance is another way to try and prevent respiratory droplets from passing from one person or another. What I will say is that with face masks, there's more than a couple of advantages. Like we talked about, you have the advantage of it being more difficult to pass a respiratory droplet from someone who's ill. Have more of a barrier to inhale a respiratory droplet for someone who's susceptible. The other thing that face masks do is they prevent people from touching their face and then touching surfaces that might be places where an infected respiratory droplet could be passed from one person to another by touching the same surface over and over again. So that's the other kind of advantage of the mask, is it sort of prevents people from touching their faces frequently throughout the course of the day.
Great. Any information, doctor, about the transfer of virus? Because we're talking about indoor versus outdoor, and some of the areas that would be really difficult if we had to continually disinfect, like playground equipment or shared equipment like a kickball or something like that. Any thoughts on the transfer of virus in children?
So if you look at the severity of disease in children, it's statistically much lower than in older adults. And also people who have no underlying medical conditions, there's also much less risk of severe illness compared to people who have chronic medical conditions or underlying medical conditions. So children typically have less disease burden than adults, and obviously elderly adults have more disease burden typically than younger adults. that being said, if you look at the CDC guidelines, it kind of breaks it down into, lower risk for transmission, kind of setup versus a medium versus a high, risk. So things that people would commonly come in contact with over and over again, like playground equipment, one approach that would be the most strict would be to simply close those areas and not allow them to be open for use. I think the second, most realistic, but less stringent way to approach that would be to do a regular disinfecting, at some frequency that seems possible, probably daily, for playground equipment. But outdoor environments probably, lower risk, based on things like evaporation, sun exposure, wind, and just open space between areas. Outdoor environments probably lower risk compared to indoor environments like a gymnasium or locker room or things along those lines. I think in terms of shared sports equipment, that's a tough one. Anytime that you're playing, any team sport, you're probably having the chance for close contact with people. And then many things, basketball, football, baseball, all those kind of things. People are touching common surfaces or common sports equipment. Obviously, it's not possible or realistic to play a game of basketball and wipe down the ball in between every person, touching them. So these are some of the difficult decisions that people, I think, are going to have to, make and look at. And I think part of it is due to just how prevalent the illness is in the specific communities. Once again, Grant County right now has a high level of disease activity, but I don't know that that necessarily correlates to Cuba City having a high, level of disease activity. Part of it, I think, really just depends on kind of what the tolerance for risk and susceptibility is, within the school, and what the tolerance is to bypass some of the things that would normally make up a school day, like physical education class, being maybe a good example of that, or possibly considering going to things that wouldn't involve touching sports equipment over and over again. So, doing maybe more of based, kind of stuff, or things that don't involve passing the ball or touching sports equipment one person after another, or those kind of things.
But before my last question, which is just any school recommendations that you would have, are there any board members who have any questions that they've been thinking about that they'd like to get a doctor's take on?
I just, what is the doctor's feeling? Again, he stated initially that it's probably mostly spread through the air, through the droplets. Is there any, the basketball just seems low risk to me. I mean, a kid on the playground, what are they gonna do besides just run by themselves? Can you play tag? What?
So you're talking outside or inside?
Well, just anything. If it's mostly spread through the respiratory droplets as compared to, is that 95% to 5%? Is it?
Were you able to hear that, doctor?
I think so. I think I understand the gist of the question. So, respiratory droplets, I think it's easy to conceptualize a person coughing or sneezing and producing a lot of respiratory droplets that fly a short distance through the air and could land on other people or surfaces. So you have, that kind of environment around anyone who, potentially could spread the illness. But then, respiratory droplets can land on things, and that's where the issue with surfaces comes in. So, a person who coughs and sneezes onto a surface that another person then touches and then wipes their mouth or touches their face or things along those lines, that's where the concern or risk comes in with there. I agree. I think, things like, playing most sports, would seem like a pretty low risk. I think one thing that, like we were talking about with masks and mitigating some of the risk that goes along with this, frequent hand washing would be, certainly another thing, or hand sanitizing would certainly be another thing that mitigates the risk. And I know a lot of the focus for disease prevention also has to do with making those opportunities for hand cleansing, throughout the course of the day or an activity more accessible, whether that's hand sanitizer available in different
Doctor, what would you tell someone who says, you know, because we represent a whole wide spectrum of our constituents here. If someone says, hey, all this hand washing and hand sanitizing, it's really not good for the overall immune system. And, you know, I really want you guys to reconsider that. What would your medical take be on that?
Yeah, I think, you know, if things were normal, that would be a very, you know, valid point. So, you know, there's certainly some benefit to a person's individual immune system to be exposed to different things and build up antibodies, and all that is largely done through being exposed to things, you know, throughout one's lifetime. We're not really in a normal situation right now. We're in an increased risk situation where there's, you know, a specific infectious disease that's specifically prevalent in the community. So I think that philosophy doesn't necessarily apply to the risk that's present, you know, today with this specific virus.
Are you familiar with that American Academy of Pediatrics guidance for school reentry?
The main guidance that I've reviewed and looked at is the CDC guidance on school reopening and reentry, which I imagine there's probably a lot of consistency, but I haven't read the pediatric one specifically.
One thing that they did mention is if you wear a face covering, whether it's a shield or a mask, they believe the mask would transmit that social distancing from 6 feet to 3 feet. And just to make it, you know, ultimately we want all of our kids in our building, but we want to provide a safe environment. And they said, you know, schools were not built for social distancing. They were built more like a sardine can to fit as many sardines in as you can.
Right.
But wearing the face shield or a face mask reduces that from 6 to 3. Have you heard anything outside of that study that says that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can comment on that specifically. I know that the CDC guidance does highlight the importance of being more strict with face mask wear when the social distancing is not possible.
Yeah.
So I think that sounds, you know, maybe pretty consistent with that. You know, there's some other things about setting up a classroom in terms of all the desks facing the same direction, for example, that is a part of the CDC, you know, recommendations or guidance that I think is probably doable in most classroom, you know, settings. And then, you know, the younger the student or the child, you know, the less possible it is to use face masks. And actually, you know, if you're getting, you know, into very young children, they're not recommended at all, you know, like under the age of 2. So, you know, I think when you are doing a good job with the wear or use of face masks, the social distancing can be relaxed safely and reasonably more so than if face masks aren't being used consistently.
As far as other things that we should really be aware of, I saw in that pediatrics guidance that talked about that parents shouldn't be allowed in the school, no use of lockers, you know, feeding lunch in the classroom, etc. As far as, like you said, relating to masks being probably one of the best things you could do, are those things you would recommend as well?
Well, those are things that the CDC recommends. So, you know, I think it's important to be you know, from my perspective, it's important to be pretty consistent with what, you know, the national experts are recommending, and the things that you just mentioned there are part of the guidelines as well. You know, I think the more that you reduce different groups of people coming together in larger numbers, the more you decrease the risk of disease. But you know, I think, you know, one thing to bring up as well is that a lot of the risk that goes along with school environments doesn't necessarily have to do with the students themselves so much as the other people in the community that the students come in contact with. So if you look at the statistics for like deaths from coronavirus, you know, in Wisconsin, I think there are none for teenagers or children. So like under 20, there's no deaths. But that's not to say that a student can transmit an infection to a faculty member or family member, you know,
Thank you.
All right, any parting words, any, final recommendations? Oh, we got one more question, sorry, Doctor.
Is there any concern with younger children, or I guess anybody of any age, but more so we're talking about kids here, but wearing the face mask all day long versus like a shield? So they're breathing their own breath for 6 or 7 hours at a time versus a shield. Is there any concern with?
You mean, like a health risk of?
Right.
Like students
Like
with
an
asthma is
alternative,
what I'm thinking.
yeah.
Time. Yeah, I think, certainly you can envision that the type of mask and how it fits and, things like that can make a difference. I don't know if anyone has seen pictures of like healthcare workers who are wearing N95 masks all day and they have, basically like abrasions, in a circle around their face. So, if a mask fits too tightly, that's, a risk for, skin breakdown and things like that. I think in terms of just breathing exhaled air, I think that's not too much of a risk unless you're using a mask that's very, that's really not allowing any air movement across it. If you had some sort of face covering that was not porous at all and a person was just, rebreathing, their own exhale air and nothing else, like no additional airflow, that would be a risk. Although from what I've seen, I don't think, most people are probably doing that. And that's the kind of situation where people would tend to feel not well pretty quickly, if they were wearing a mask that was not allowing adequate, airflow or oxygenation in the first place. I think, most people kind of will just automatically make adjustments, when things are uncomfortable to the extent that they are dangerous to them.
Any other questions, anybody? All right, any final thoughts or final recommendations for us, Doctor?
Well, I think a good, final recommendation would be, like I said, I think, in the way of trying to be, both as correct as possible and consistent as possible. The place that I usually look for recommendations and guidance is the Centers for Disease Control website, which has a specific place on their website for considerations for schools. That's pretty comprehensive, and a lot of the things on there are going to be applicable. A lot of the things on there are going to be difficult, to put in place, but I think it's got a pretty comprehensive list of the considerations and things that can be done and things that, can be considered to try and, reduce risk as much as possible. So, I consider that a pretty reliable resource. So, I think that you can as well. And, here in the hospital, we certainly remain a resource for people who have questions, both at the individual, level with their health and then, at the institutional level for you all as well.
Great. Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And I'm sure a lot of us will see you soon.
My pleasure.
Thanks for everything you do. You bet. All right, so I'm going to switch this on to Ben now,
Back to me.
and we'll pick up right where we left off. Can you see Megan?
Yes, I can.
All right, I believe we were on the outside bleachers, so that hopefully will eliminate the issue of the mud going across the track. We also took some of the grass from each side of the steps going down to the track, because that had been eroding, and we put, I want to say like a 3-foot section of rock on each side all the way down, eliminating the erosion there. We got enough gravel that we actually, Maoris from Hazel Green decided to donate a load of limestone for the baseball field, so save that money on there. The big projects, obviously there's a lot going on, but we kind of made note of the big projects that we haven't processed. First one is the bridge replacement. It's due. We have everything here. We're hoping the way we're going to reconfigure it, it's going to last. I'm ballparking it probably an additional 8 years. You're on usually now, I think, a 7-year replacement, so we're hoping to get 15 out of it now.
Replacement for what? Can you say that one more time?
The bridge going to the elementary school.
Okay.
When it was done last time, there's never been really any rock put in to stop erosion. So basically the water just goes up and around the bridge, taking out the railroad pylons, dropping it down. So what we're gonna do is we have one more load coming whenever we need it. We're actually getting like 15-inch riprap to put underneath the bridge, and then going with smaller rock about 15 feet or so on each side of the bridge, slowing the water down before it comes to it and slowing it when it goes out of it, so that it doesn't just take the dirt and go right away with it. Got new railroad ties. We're gonna actually use treated wood around them so that they don't erode, and then drive stakes in on each side so that the railroad ties aren't, because basically what's happening now is the railroad ties are folding in inside on themselves. So that's the one project there. Exterior high school doors, we have them ordered. We are going to be replacing the single athletic entrance door in between the two locker rooms there. We're going to flip the swing of it so that it'll swing this way out now so that the wind cannot catch it and bang it open. Therefore, I think I've repaired the closer 2 or 3 times already. We're going to replace the door going to the football field. If you look at it, the whole bottom is just eroded away. We're going to go to an aluminum door with a removable center partition so that when we get big pallets, stuff like that, we can just pop it out, roll it where they need to be. And the nice thing is both of them are going to we have access control figured into that as well. So now when the teams get back late, we can have that athletic door program to come open when they come back, or if the coach has a fob, they can go in that door and out that door. No more tracking, snow, salt, whatever through the building. And the nice thing is we'll know who goes in, when they go in, when they leave, when they're done, because it's all basically time stamped. We're having concrete poured around the pole vault area. We have a 4-foot by 70-foot total strip that's going to go all the way around the whole edge of it, so the mats will not lay in the dirt or the mud anymore. We're going to put a fastening system down so that when the next storm comes through, we don't have to try and drag them and untie. They're a lot heavier than I thought they were. We are going to be pouring landing pads down at the emergency exit steps on the bottom of the bleachers. I don't know if you ever noticed that. There's nothing down there now. So if there was ever an emergency or anything and people were to come running off them bleachers, it's a mud pit, and there's really nowhere for them to stand to start exiting. So we're going to pour a pad on each side of there, and then a pad under the press box steps where it's gravel still. And then lastly, Joe Vosberg donated the Cuba City Cubans bench that he got at the Booster Club auction, and we're going to pour a pad in between the third base dugout and home field. And we're going to put that there, and hopefully the Booster Club will be able to raffle that off as the seat of the house, kind of like what they do for football next year at the auction. So that's a project there. LED lights for the parking lot. We have the middle school done. We're working on doing the high school lots. The boiler at the elementary school is about 98% complete. We actually eliminated one of the old boilers that were down there. So we've gotten rid of the 2 that were originally bad. Andy from Winona Controls came down. He said that, then this was before I started, that we had stuck a lot of money into them boilers and they were very inefficient. He looked at the specs of the new boilers, basically said, we don't need both of them. We don't need 4 boilers. We're going to monitor the second boiler that's there. He doesn't think we'll ever touch that second boiler with these 2 new boilers that we're putting in. He said, these are 97% efficient boilers. He said, you'll be lucky if you actually use the second new boiler, but we have to have a backup system. So if we can monitor for a year, we're hoping to actually remove that one out of there too. We're going to keep it in there for a year. If we don't need it, that's one less thing we have to worry about maintaining, one less thing we have to worry about inspecting, get licensing for, and all that. We are in the process of replacing the building management system here at the high school. The system that we're on right now is run off of Java and Windows 2008. It's a server-based program meaning you have to be on site or only one computer will work with it. We were gonna upgrade that, but Aaron and I both looked at what the estimate was and what it was gonna do. And basically, and I had Chuck look at it too, basically we were just paying for a graphics upgrade and a new computer server. And when I talked to Winona, when they did the installation or the new middle school, they put a network in that is big enough to handle the whole school at no charge to us. You guys paid for, they thought they were gonna get the system at that point, so they went ahead and already had it installed. So basically, we don't incur any of that cost, it's already done. What we're gonna do is basically go around, they're gonna switch out and actually put the thermostats like they have up at the middle school. Granted, the teachers will love it because they think they're actually doing something with the temperature, but really they're not doing a lot, but it's perception. And we're gonna work on one platform. So right now, you know, kind of like I told Aaron, I said the platform we have in the middle school is like working off a PS4, PlayStation 4. What we have in the high school right now is like working on an old Nintendo. So we're gonna get those two basically married together. One system. It can be remoted in anywhere within the United States. Andy with Winona is only a phone call away, and he consistently remotes in and checks things for me, and will alert me if he sees something out of the ordinary, because he knows I'm still on the learning curve with all this and figuring out what we have for systems. We're not gonna do like Mrs. Rogeman's, Mrs. Joel's. They're already on a thermostat system. We figured we'd take that money and apply it to getting the air handlers up and running properly for the gym, so that there's actually fresh air circulation and it's not so stuffy. I mean, we know it's not air conditioning, but we figured something's better than nothing. And I know Aaron and Chuck and I have been working on the boiler at the high school, and I know we're going to discuss that further in detail. And that, pretty much goes for the projects and process. Process. The notables that we've done, I don't know, if you look around, look at the playground equipment. The high school students took it upon themselves to go around and paint all of the playground equipment down there. The old white slide, that's all the rust is gone out of there. It looks good. It really does. It really looks good. We painted numerous rooms at the elementary school. Painted senior hall here at the high school, brightened up a little bit. We switched the floor cleaning for the floor waxing for the gym to Coogan Services. He's actually out of Keeler, which is nice. He does the surrounding schools, majority of them around here. We have an issue. I talked with the maintenance director over at Southwestern. He said he came to one of the games, noticed a scratch, and the next day he was up there fixing it, and no cost to the school. So, that's kind of nice if we do see something that, we can repair halfway through the year and not have a bigger issue when they come do it in June and July. It's nice. Aaron has implemented an evaluation system for the custodians now. And now they know what is expected of them. And basically, I think that has basically improved everybody's attitude, and which basically now has made productivity a lot better. So I think we're on the right path. I know a lot of it's not visual stuff, but we're making it better day by day. So I know mine was long, so sorry. Hopefully next time it's not as long, but we wanted to take the opportunity with the time that we had without the students here. Trust me, I'd rather have my kids here more than anything. So thanks again.
Appreciate it, Ben. Any questions?
Yeah.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron, your report?
All right, as you can tell, everybody's gotten a lot of stuff done, especially building grounds. So start with a few thanks. Thanks to Pam and Julie and Heather and Ashley in the high school office for all their responsiveness, and at times counseling. And thank you for that. Big thanks to Jesse and Jessica last Thursday. We had some transportation issues that came up last minute, and Jesse and Jessica sprang to action and had everything done in a lot less time than I thought that was capable of doing, and did a wonderful job at it. So thanks to all those people, and thanks to Ben and Brian who have done all those things, and the custodians, because the reason it took so long is because they've been that busy. They've had a lot to do. They've had a lot of time to do it. But you wouldn't know that watching or following some of them around, because they're running from one project to the other, working their butt off. So thank you guys. Masks and shield were purchased for all students. So for the people who are viewing virtually, you'll notice that all of us have either a mask or a shield on, and students will have that option. We'll provide that for them. I know a lot of parents are shopping online or in stores to find a mask that their kid will wear and something that's cool for them, which is fine. But we wanted to make sure that we were able to provide those as well. The reopening plan, I know the principals talked about that. The difference though in our reopening plan and others is when we read the DPI document, and this is why it's going to take us longer than other schools. Just want to tell everybody that. It says gather input from stakeholders. So we reached out to the PTO, to the Booster Club, to the Fine Arts Boosters, to the private schools and church leaders and our staff, and said, hey, here are the times we're going to be meeting. It's pretty much every Monday through Thursday. We have an afternoon meeting from 1 to 3 on different items that we feel we need to have ready for a reopening. So because we're getting input from other people, it's going to take longer. I know some people, we could have just sat down with the admin team and worked through that booklet and presented a product for you for approval. We think getting collaboration with all those stakeholders, we're going to be able to provide a better document for you in a more safe and well-rounded way to open the school that's holistic, and not just from the administrator lens. So just so you guys know, if you see other schools in our area come out with their plan, I want everybody to know that we're one of the only schools who's setting aside time to get a lot more input. And it just takes longer, but we feel we're going to have a better product. So that's kind of the reopening. We'll talk a little bit more about that. WIA letter, the superintendents from Wisconsin, you guys know every Tuesday, we have about an hour or so meeting together with different people. WIA, the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association, was there, and their take was, hey, this is just local control, whatever you guys want to do, but fall season's gonna start in a few weeks. If you don't want to play, then you don't have to. You can imagine what all of the school leaders are thinking. If one school has sports and one doesn't, people are going to jump ship. And you know, we're asking the WIA to take a leadership position on that, and they want to be more hands off, which is really uncharacteristic of the WIA, who likes to have total control of everything. So the CISA 3 superintendents came up with an idea. When I say that, it was actually Rob Wagner from Lancaster that said, hey, let's not take a season away from kids, but let's make some changes. And the changes were basically start up sports in January in the winter season. Don't start it in November, start it in January. Have a shortened winter season. Take the fall sports, put them in the spring where the normal spring season is. Take the spring sports and put them in the old summer season. We used to have summer baseball here in Cuba City, and that would usually go in June and the first part of July. We don't know if the WIA is we know that they're having a meeting about it on Tuesday. That's just one suggestion. They might get other ones, but we don't want kids that love those things to miss out on them. And it's really difficult for me to answer, and my kids are in sports and I was an athlete and I enjoy going to those contests, but it's really hard for me to answer when somebody says, okay, you're taking all these precautions from 8 until 3:30, but then you're just going out and letting everybody play and mix together and be this far away from each other, breathing heavily, you know, after school. How can you do that? Well, you know, we're getting things from Grant County that says, hey, you've got to rethink how you're doing band in school, because there are droplets that come out of instruments. Choir, they're seeing a lot of cases from church choirs because they can spread because you're exhaling a lot. So, you know, when we hear these things, and then we have the WI saying, oh, but sports are okay in the fall, it's really hard for us to say we're going to do this in school. So what we're hearing is that you know, if the vaccine might be available in, say, November, and by the time it would get to general population, it might be January. Maybe that's when we should start sports, is when that is mitigated. You're not gonna take away the risk, but it's lessened. So, that's something that we signed off from the seats of 3 superintendents. Talked a little bit about, state aid estimate. July 1, those always come out, and it looks like, we'll be getting about an additional 90,000 in state aid, which means then we tax 90,000 less, which should theoretically lower the mill rate. So it doesn't mean we get an extra 90,000 if that's what everybody was thinking. Let's see. Today I met with senators and some state senators and state house members of the House of Representatives, and they wanted to know what we're seeing from schools. They wanted to know how the government can help. And so everybody just kind of had their few minutes. There are some reoccurring themes. With funding, the CARES Act, we're going to get some dollars for safety things, but by the time you get hand sanitizer, disinfectant, sprayers, and some plastic things so you can utilize tables, the CARES money is gone. That was one thing. A lot of people were saying, can you please require some type of face covering, because face masks have gotten political, where some people just say, nope, you can't make me do it. Where we have some staff who have told me, because of either their health condition or their age, that I'm going to be really nervous if I have to work with a kid who doesn't have a face covering on. And so that was one thing we talked about as well. So, they listened, and they're just 3 members of the state government, and there's a whole lot more. But I was glad they took time to listen. It was scheduled to be a 45-minute meeting, and they sat there and listened to us for well over 2 hours. So I was appreciative of that. And finally, we're working on some grants. We're working on a $50,000 grant to make some HVAC improvements at the high school, and a $15,000 Honda STEM grant for Cuba City Elementary School. So those are 2 this week that we're working on. About every 2 weeks, we have a meeting with them, and we review other grants with that grant company, Robert J. Miller and Associates. So that's everything on my list. Any questions?
Aaron, did you get enough participation in the committees?
Yes, the question was, do we get enough participation? We've got some groups that have, I would say, 14, and I had one group on school operations and governance. We had 3, so that, Pam, you were with me on that one. But that's probably the smallest group, and then the largest group was teaching and learning with 15. But, we've had some really great comments from parents and from students that, when we're done with the meetings, we're like, wow, we didn't think of these 3 or 4 things. I'm really glad that we're getting input from other people and not just trying to do it ourselves. And we try to tell everybody that at the end of the meeting. I think every meeting we're better off than we were at the beginning.
So at this point, can you tell us, Aaron, when and how you will make the decision as to, school will start September 1 and it will look like?
Yep, that's the discussion point B. That's where we're almost there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
I'm too
Yep,
early.
we'll discuss the reopening plan and
Okay.
development and all those things, and I'll give you kind of an overview.
I heard Dave Anderson on TV 2 nights ago. Did you hear that?
No.
Can I play it?
Sure. I will say, I don't think the WIA was prepared for what happened when they met with all the school leaders. It's good. We were honest and upfront.
At any rate, I'll
You can paraphrase.
Paraphrase, basically there'll be a season, it'll start this fall, and it may just look different, and, I mean, because it sounded like we're gonna play sports, period. He was being interviewed and
So we met with them, what's today, Wednesday? So I think I met with that, it was either, I think it was yesterday, it was Tuesday.
So I think
And
that's
they
done.
came into that meeting not wanting to make any changes and use total local control. Our WIA board rep, who's Willie Chambers from Blackhawk, told us today that there is an emergency meeting to talk about the plan on Tuesday. So at least they're considering it.
So that interview was on Monday night, the superintendent meeting was yesterday, was Tuesday.
yeah, he was on Channel 27 on the 10 o'clock news, and, you know, basically I was sort of surprised because it made it sound like there's gonna be a sports season.
We have heard today that there were multiple conferences now that have looked at that proposal and have forwarded on to WI and said, we approve of, we recommend that you guys really look at this. So it's gaining some support. We feel it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win because the kids still get to have the season. It's a win because the WI still gets to have a tournament series. And it's a win because looking at how it's anticipated the medical part will play out, it's safer for our kids. So that's how we view it. I know some people may not like it. It is different. There will be a time then when you have to go, if that works, you'd have summer sports all the way up till mid-July, and then fall sports would start, that 1 year would start, in early August. So there is that 1 year where you have to, it's not as much rest as we would like to be able to provide those kids. So it is not perfect, but we don't want to let perfect get in the way of better. And we feel it's a better approach.
They're getting rest now.
Yeah, they've gotten rest for the last few months.
Any questions of Aaron?
No.
Alrighty, moving on, discussion about replacing the high school boiler.
Yep, so the high school boiler is running about 26% efficiency right now. It did pass, just barely, we hear. It passed the inspection, but we knew when we did the referendum to add the middle school that was an item that was eventually going to be addressed. We were quoted somewhere around 220,000 during the referendum process to exchange the boiler. Now, we were really happy with the work they did at the elementary, and they did that for about 80. He came up and gave us an estimate up here, and he thought he could do that same thing for 90,000, which was bid out at 220 during the referendum. So last year, we approved our budget and then to overspend by $80,000 to do that boiler. And we were within $600 of that amount this year. And so if you're looking at the action agenda, my numbers are wrong because we had some things come in lately. But that's something that with that price and that efficiency, and if we can replace a boiler that's working at 26% efficiency with one that's working at 97, 98, somewhere around there, in the long run, that's going to really set us up for, a better future at this building. I don't think we'll get a better price than that. We're happy with the work. We're happy with the products that they use at the elementary. I'll turn it over to Ben and Chuck who know a lot more about this than I do.
I actually talked with Andy from Winona, and when I asked him what their quoted price was, just to see, he rattled off, I think, like 175, and that doesn't include taking the old boiler out. Total plumbing and heating price of 91,000 actually included the dismantling, cutting, and removing of the old boiler. Now I know when that 220 that you got with the referendum, that was actually leaving the old boiler in there, and I don't know how Mitch did it, but he said he could fit 2 boilers in there. With that boiler, it's, he said it's not really a practical idea, but he was looking at cost savings. The nice thing with the way Total Plumbing and Heating would do it, say we ever decided to put a gym out here or whatnot, there's enough space where he would actually pipe it to install another boiler if need be. It would all be set up and done. Without getting an engineer involved, I don't even think we'd have to install a new boiler if you ever did a gym or an addition out here, just with the way the efficiency is with these new boilers. And when I told Andy the price, he goes, I'd go buy 10 of them if I were you right now. He goes, I don't know how. He goes, you must not have a lot of overhead. And I'm like, no, he pretty much doesn't. It's him in a truck and that's about it. But he does really good work. He is retiring in March of next year, but I spoke to him about that and he said he would stay available to us for a year after installation, which that's generally what you get for a warranty. So if we did have an issue, and I said, obviously I would need that put in the contract so that, you know, if we did have an issue. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Chuck?
Well, one thing is just look at the cost savings that we can do for the operation, plus the cost savings of getting it installed at this time for the taxpayer. You know, when you can do it for basically half or more, you know, less than half, to me, it's a no-brainer because it's efficient. Just like your house, if your furnace is 27% efficiency and you can buy a new one for a reasonable amount, you do it. You know, it's a good thing for everyday operation.
So you're recommending we put that on next month's agenda then?
We actually have it
Yes.
on this agenda
It's on this
to
agenda.
vote on if we're ready to do that.
I would recommend it, yeah, because of the cost savings and the efficiency that we end up with.
And like
down
I,
the road, we got an electrical issue we gotta address, and which gives us the opportunity in the room to do it.
like I discussed with Aaron and Heather, this is like basically one of the last big ticket items for the high school, minus AC. I think we all know that, you know, and that's something we're hopefully going to work on down the line. But as far as mechanical wise, that's the last of the big ticket items. And we would actually switch over to those boilers instead of the one that we are currently using now, because the one that we have now is probably 80% efficient. As you know, take advantage of what we can.
Any questions, board?
I think we need to discuss what was discussed in the finance committee earlier tonight
So we were,
about those numbers that are printed.
Yep.
And where they're actually at.
so, we were anticipating being about between 150 and 200,000 under budget, for this school year. And that was as of about last week, whenever we sent this. The last 3 or 4 years, was it 4 years or 3 years, Heather?
3 years.
The last 3 years, at the end of June, we always got something that's called supplemental special education aid. And you have to meet you have to meet this, and this. And the last 3 years that we have, this year, we are expecting that at the end of June for the tune of about $150,000-$160,000. We didn't qualify for that this year based on our spending per student. That was the reason that in the past we had, now we had not. They use a floating number, and this year only 9 schools got that. In previous years, there were 30 or 40 schools that were getting that. So we had budgeted that we were going to get that revenue. We didn't, which meant that we were within $1,000 of what we thought we would spend this year in a multi-million-dollar budget. So I was hoping that we would be able to say, okay, with some of that savings, we'll do that. So in order to do this year, we would have to exceed that and use our Fund 10 dollars of that $90,000. Right now, we're at about 22% fund balance of our average spending. Our policy says that we stay at 20. This would keep us above 20. But we have been putting more money in Fund 46 than our fund balance. Fund 46, remember, is the account that we can put money in for capital projects, but it has to sit there idle for 5 years before we can use it. The advantage of putting money in Fund 46 versus putting money in Fund 10, in Fund 10, if we put $200,000 in there, then the next year we are going to get 15% less of whatever we put in Fund 10, because the state looks at it and says, you don't need that money, so next year we'll give you less. So in order to do this, we would have to go over budget. Now, right now, in our preliminary budget, we're about 400, if we just use this year's spending with next year's revenue and anticipated spending, we're about 400,000 over. Before all of you freak out, every year it's like 300 or 350,000 over. Then we go through and we take out, well, we don't need this year. We don't need that we got that last year. We don't need it again. So every year, that's part of what we do in September and October is trim that. So that's not an insurmountable amount when you take out those purchases and some other things that we'll be thinking about doing this year. So I think, you know, we look at our budget month by month to make sure that we're right on there. I think we'll be able to get this to a balanced budget that we brought to you every year. And I think that everybody who oversees different parts of their budget does a nice job of only spending money when we have it and when we need it. So I would go along with this. This probably is going to have to come out of Fund 10. Now, what was your timeline for this? Do you want to do that this summer or is it next summer?
Well, with him retiring in March, my goal was to actually have it completed before school started.
Yeah, in August was the,
Yeah.
was that.
And he said he basically needed a week notification. He can get the guys in here to start cutting. I think that's what's gonna take the longest is cutting out the old boiler in there, so.
So those are all the financial pieces that we talked about at the budget and finance meeting. I don't think I missed anything, did I, Dan?
Well, other than just to reiterate, the budget's not just $600 off with the $80,000 boiler project at the round school. We're actually 80,000 over this year.
Correct. So,
So it's not,
it's within 600 of what we were approved to spend. But it'll look like 80,000 came out of our fund balance because it did, but we had approved that in October.
So that this boiler in essence has to come out of the fund balance.
And this is one of those things that we thought, okay, if we can float by, this is something we would probably have targeted our Fund 46 for, because we know that the high school needs a new boiler. But if we can do that, you know, sooner than later, that's probably better, just knowing that we barely passed the inspection this year.
Correct, yeah.
Any other questions?
well, I just want to say also is that our fund balance right now is about $2.1 million, which is about 22%. So to keep us in with our policy at 20%, it probably only, you know, I don't have the math, but maybe it's 300 grand we could take out of there and still be compliant to our policy. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
And remember the fund balance, and you guys probably all know this, fund balance isn't just available cash, that's cash plus assets. So, you know, there's a lot of capital things that flow into that. And the reason we want to keep it at 20% is right now, we don't have to do any short-term borrowing to make payroll. That's kind of one, that's why we want to have that much cash there. And some months it gets, you know, your fund balance changes month by month, depending on when we get our large chunks of revenue. But it's not all just cash. We don't have $2.1 million in cash somewhere.
And you said each year we're about 300 over? Is that-
Yes, the first time we enter it in once we get to July, and then we just carry over line item to line item from last year to this year. That's a normal
Okay.
number.
Okay. Item B, discussion of the reopening plan development process and timeline.
So I talked a little bit about how we set up our meetings. Now we'll talk a little bit about the timeline. So basically the last meeting we have is Monday, and I'm guessing at the date it might be July 27th, something like that. Then administratively, we were talking today about, you know, what products do we want to be able to produce for people to see that. So we kind of came up with our end tool that we want to get to parents from. What are the main points that came out of all those meetings? What is it going to look like when their kids are back at school? And what we want to do is that last week in July and that first week in August, we want to have all that done for parents. And we want to have basically a COVID-19 pandemic appendix that goes in with the staff handbook. So staff know this is what this means, and this is only like right now. We're not going to change the entire handbook. We want to have a separate appendix that just says, this is how we're going to do it while we're in a pandemic. So some things that we're thinking about, we haven't made decisions on this, but I've shared with some of you kind of having a phase plan. So if we're in phase green or you know, code green, whatever that is, that would mean kids are here face to face 5 days a week, and that's how we want to start. And that we're operating under the assumption that that's how we're going to start. And then if we have to go to yellow, that would mean possibly 6 through 12 or a hybrid, where they're here 2 or 3 days a week and online 2 or 3 days a week. But K5 are here every day. Then maybe orange is, at 6-12, you guys are full virtual. K5, now we're going to utilize all 3 buildings and classrooms and keep people farther apart and more isolated, because I do feel that we have a custodial responsibility for those kids up through age 11, generally in grade 5, to make sure that the parents do not have to worry about those kids. And then if we're in phase red, that means everybody's virtual. So that's an approach some schools are using. But we want to try to map out what all those steps would look like for parents. What does transportation look like? What does lunch look like? What technology is needed? All those different things that we're having all these meetings about, we want to lay that out for parents. And we talked today about simplicity being really important, because people want to look at that. And Albert Einstein once said it, a true genius can explain anything to a 6-year-old. Well, Albert Einstein was right with that. So we want to be able to provide a product that parents and kids can look at and say, okay, this is what this means. And we want to start 5 days a week. We want to start face to face, and we're going to have to make some decisions. Face coverings being a big one. If we think that face coverings are going to allow us to keep face to face 5 days a week, then that might be a decision that we have to make. And whether it's strongly recommended or whether it's required is going to be something that we are going to decide in August. We'll have some suggestions for you, but some schools are going different ways. And some counties are saying nope. Obviously in Dane County, face masks face coverings are mandatory. So that's kind of the outlook of how we're developing this. Why we might be a little behind other schools is because we are getting input from everybody. It's not just 5 people sitting around the table and you're just getting those 5 views. We're hearing from staff, we're hearing from students, we're hearing from parents, we're hearing from organizations. So that's kind of the timeline that we have. What we want to do is after that first full week in August, the next Monday, we want to send it out in a draft form to staff. We want to send it out in a draft form to parents, and then follow it up with a survey and say, hey, take a look at this. What are some things that you want us to consider? That's how we want to get input from everybody. Because right now, not everybody's on a committee, but we'll give everybody the opportunity to give us some feedback. And then we might make some adaptations based on those recommendations, and we'll bring the final plan to you at the August 19th board meeting, something like that. But it's not like the parents are going to be surprised on August 20th. We'll let them know kind of what that timeline is, and they're going to have a chance, probably a week, to look it over and give us some feedback on it before we tweak it and bring it to you. Understand that no matter what we do, some people will not like parts of our plan, and administratively, Heather was at our admin meeting today, and the first one, and she got involved in a lot of the educational conversations we're having. Right now, what we're having to do is balance safety and best practice educationally. And we don't like some of the decisions that we feel like we have to make, because on this situation, we're going to go with safety, even though I know that that's not best practice for education. In a normal year, we wouldn't do this, but right now we're going to have to, just like Dr. Keeter said with some of those things as well. So just know that people will not like everything. We won't like everything. You won't like everything, but we are trying to balance the safety and educational best practices the best that we can. And the ultimate goal at the end of the day, and I think this counts for everybody in the room and everybody watching at home, everybody wants kids at school 5 days a week, face to face. We do not want to go back to full virtual. Staff doesn't want to. You guys don't want to. Parents don't want to. Kids don't want to. So in order to do that, we're going to ask students and staff to do things differently that allow us to remain face-to-face 5 days a week.
Yes, for my perspective, and I appreciate everything that the admin team, staff, et cetera, have been doing to try and develop these plans, but I would say I still wholly promote favoring 5 days a week. And I would say making masks mandatory, meaning that at least at this point, because if I still understand it, that Aaron doesn't necessarily get the last call, because you said the county and or our insurance company carrier who says unless you follow certain recommended procedures, they won't support us doing what I just said.
Yep.
So I think that, you know, at this point, if we're gonna try and pull 5 days a week off, we're gonna have to do everything possible. Because as Dr. Cuter said, we're red, and I don't see anything at this point causing those cases necessarily to go down.
And face masks, I think, will be the most, that will be the most controversial. Because I have already had parents tell me, if we require face masks, I'm gonna go to a school that doesn't. And that people do have that choice. But again, the ultimate goal, I don't think I've talked to any parents that said, yeah, I prefer that virtual education to the face-to-face. If they're out there, they haven't told me that. The ultimate goal is we want all of our kids at school, face-to-face, 5 days a week. And if we feel collectively that face masks or face coverings will help with that, that will be a decision that we will certainly make in August.
Questions, comments, board?
I appreciate all the time you put in on every avenue and setting those committees up. I mean, I don't feel that we're behind anyone. To me, we're on the right track. I mean, I don't know why decisions have to be made in July when school's not starting for 6 weeks. I mean,
Yeah, and a lot could
I think
change by
making
then.
that decision in August is the time to make it. So I mean, I don't feel we're behind, my belief.
Ellie has her hand up.
I do, I'm raising my hand. And I would also like to add, I think that we get to have summer school is allowing us to try some of these things out in very small amounts, which will make our plan much better too. So I think, being first and fast doesn't always get us the results we
No,
want.
I agree.
So I just wanna say that too, that again, because we're able to have summer school, kids are wearing face coverings, it's working. Teachers are loving having kids in the building, so that's another piece that it's good to do that for a few weeks and let's see how things go. That'll help our plan be that much stronger.
Someone at summer school made an analogy about kids getting used to like glasses and things like that, and it's very similar.
Well, seatbelts, I mean.
Yeah.
Much harder on the adults to get used to wearing a seatbelt than it was the kids.
Yes.
That was my conversation today with an adult is, it's amazing how resilient and adaptive young children are. You know, we have a few outside activities where kids aren't required to wear the mask because they're further apart. But in the actual building, anytime you see kids, you know, even close to 6 feet apart, their masks are on. So it's, you know, they don't have an issue with it. It's probably gonna be grown-ups adjusting. I know, I struggle at times, you know, I've had this thing on, you know, I've had my mask on for 30 minutes and I'm like, man, I just wanna go in my office and take my mask off so that I don't have to continue to wear it. Not so much an issue for the kids.
All right, any other questions about the timeline or development process for the
I
back to
think
school
one thing
jobs?
what you're doing there is giving everybody ownership in it. You know, give them an opportunity to say, you know, what they think. I think that's a good thing to do.
Item C then, discussion of a full-time virtual option for 2021.
Yeah, there might be some families who just say, you know, no matter what type of mitigation problems you have with what we have going on in our family or with our child or at home, we don't want even the chance of somebody bringing it in and giving it to a sibling or a parent that has an underlying health condition. So we've looked at a full-time virtual option. The full-time option that we've looked at is called Edmentum. there is basically, there are different options, it's kind of a carte blanche. We can have different classes, for different grade levels. There's an option that, if we just say this person is fully virtual with Edmentum, it's about a $2,500 charge for that. We're looking at offering that option, as well as having, okay, if you just want to be home every day, we might be looking at Edmentum for those people. If, the virtual though will still happen, like inevitably, and some of you probably know people who, I've been in contact with somebody who had COVID, so I'm supposed to quarantine myself temporarily, and I'm gonna go get tested, but if it comes back negative, then, then I can come back. Those kids, they're gonna be in our school that have contact, so kids are gonna have to be, quarantining themselves for a little bit. Those kids that still wanna be at school but are quarantined, they're gonna Zoom in for those classes. That's what we're anticipating. We're gonna have some of those. We're gonna have a lot of teachers Zoom in a lot of classes, whether it's Zoom or whether it's Google Meet or whatever software program you use. But Edmentum is a program. I know $2,500 seems like a lot, but if they open enroll to McFarland's online school, then it's gonna cost us $7,500, not $2,500. And we lose them and we might not get them back. So we wanna be able to provide opportunity or options for the families that say, I like Cuba City, I wanna stay here, but I'm just not comfortable coming in the building. And that's one of those options that we're thinking about providing. Now, some schools might just say, oh, we're gonna have our teachers Zoom live every day. Okay, and that's a little easier as they get older to do, but that's really tough for kindergarten. And Edmentum, that has been running this program for 20 years, have more online appropriate things for those younger kids than our teachers who are dealing with, I always say kindergarten teachers have a special place in heaven because they've got 20 kids in front of them, and at home, those kids probably get a lot of attention from a parent. And so now 20 of them are all expecting that attention from a teacher all at the same time. And trying to deal with that and being responsive online when kids have questions is tough. And do we really want our 6-year-olds Zooming in for lessons and being attached to a screen for the better part of 7 hours? I'm not sure that's the best either. So that's something that we're looking at, and I just wanted to let you know the rationale for that. I'm not sure what grade level, at what grade we say, okay, we'll offer that for up to this grade. We'll have to have some conversation about where we think that is age appropriate in education as well. But any questions about that as an option for those families who just say, I'm not safe coming in the building at all?
Karen, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
If somebody wanted to go that route, do they have to commit to it for the full semester, a full year? What might that process look like? Because I worry about if we then, God forbid, end up in a situation where we have to go all virtual for a while. We don't want people trying, oh, now I want to jump back and have the classroom teacher.
Yeah, it has to be a semester thing. That's how they do it. Yeah. And the semester is just half of the year-long thing. So they said, whether you do it for 1 semester or 2, you can make that decision late, as you get closer to semester 2.
Okay.
And it's a very similar program to like Wisconsin Virtual School, where we might have high school kids, if you don't offer a course, but they would like to take it. It's similar to that. They could take 1 course online, or they could get all of the curriculum they need for the whole year online. So just to give you an idea of what the program is like. But with this program, they would still be considered our student enrolled with us, which is different. Wisconsin Virtual, if they do that, they are no longer our student if they completely take all the classes online that way.
Okay. All right.
Could I get just a quick summary of what, I could hear Ellie was
Yep.
speaking, but I couldn't hear what she was
Sorry,
saying.
Ellie was talking about right now, we do this for some high school kids that want to take a particular class that we don't offer. And we use Wisconsin Virtual Schools and pay per 1 class. So it's
Oh,
very
okay.
similar to Wisconsin Virtual Schools is what you were saying.
Thank you.
You bet.
If there's no other questions or comments regarding virtual school, we'll go into new business. A, approve the academic standards for all content areas for the 2021 school year, Aaron.
Yep, every July, we go through all the current standards and DPI. As they update those, they make sure that all standards have been updated before the July board meeting. So Stacy Ballback and the curriculum leads and the principals do a great job of making sure that we're using the most up-to-date standards, and this is just approving the DPI list right now.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, would somebody move, please?
I would move to approve the academic standards for all content areas for the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Don?
Alright, Andrews.
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item B, approve the temporary suspension of in-town transportation of non-kindergarten students before and after the school during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, and this is really just during this pandemic. So the practice that our policy says that we transport all kindergarten students. So we're not talking about a change in policy because we'll still do that. But the practice is if we have room on the bus, we'll transport first through fifth graders to a nearby stop, not to their house, but they can be transported if we have room. We don't anticipate having any room this year on buses. So I'm just suggesting and recommending that we temporarily suspend the in-town transportation to the kids that we are not legally responsible to transporting and by policy that we transport. I know it's a great service to be able to give some of those kids who live on the other side of town a ride from here to there. But this year is just gonna be a little different. So this went through the transportation committee meeting. I don't know if you guys wanna talk at all about that, but
We did have some discussion and about the daycares in town.
Yeah.
What was our plan for that?
yeah, so with daycares, we still will transport to the licensed daycares in town. And if a bus is too full, but we have room, we'll start with siblings. We'll allow siblings to use it, and then we'll go by grade level. You know, we have 3 first graders and 3 spots, and we have other kids that want to do that, we'll allow that, but just to the licensed daycares.
Any other questions? I will move to approve the temporary suspension of in-town transportation of non-kindergarten students before and after school during the COVID pandemic as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Chip? Oh, Brad. Okay, Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right.
Just have it,
Old
huh?
habits die.
Item C, approve the addition of the Cuba City School District Business Manager as a new position, Aaron.
Yep, so this is something that I've been working with the personnel committee meeting on, and Heather, who has a background in finance and a lot of experience working with banks, actually went back and got her administrative license as a school district business manager, and she is sent in for that license. The license department sometimes in DPI takes 6 days, and sometimes it takes 6 weeks, so we wish you a speedy delivery on that. About a third of the schools in CISA 3 have business managers and about 2/3 have bookkeepers. And Heather has been a bookkeeper for the last year, but she was doing her class, so she did a lot of business manager tasks throughout the entire year. And some of that is, we work with Baird are kind of our consultants, and they worked with me my first 2 years here with school budgeting. They transitioned to Heather this year. They said that Heather has caught on so quickly that they said Diane doesn't even think that she needs to renew that contract with us next year. And she has full faith that Heather will be able to do that, but she still will be available for phone calls. And the Baird forecast model is a big part of that, something that business managers kind of take ownership of. That's projecting your budget out from 1 year out to 5, although I continue to tell Heather it's only good for 2 years out. If you go past 3 or 4 years, it doesn't really work. So as this is a new position, it is a new administrative position. And she has started to take part in administrative meetings. She'll continue to do that. There are some other administrative items that are outside of school for things that she will take on as well. But it is my recommendation that we approve this administrative position for Heather in this new position. She's done a wonderful job. She got her license, and she's already been starting to do a lot of these things as a district bookkeeper. So that is my recommendation. Any questions?
Did we pay for the education that she took?
We can reimburse up to $200 a credit, and we had done that. And how many credits? Did you have 30? 36. Okay.
Any questions? Would somebody move?
I'll make a motion to approve the addition of the Cuba City School District Business Manager as presented.
I'll
Is there,
second.
And that was Sarah.
Alright, Andrews,
yes,
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Henderman, yes, Cole,
No.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Congratulations.
thank you, Heather. Item D, approve the bid for the replacement boiler at the high school.
Okay, this is the action that we talked about this before. So any other conversation you want to have before somebody may make a motion on it?
Everybody understood the fund balance thing or what that is and, okay. Would somebody move?
I'll move to approve the bid for a replacement boiler at CCHS as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And Chuck, second.
Alright, Andrews,
Yes,
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Henderman, yes, Cole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
thank you. Item E is approve the sale of a used student wheelchair to the Hodan Center.
And actually, I found out that it's not to the Hodan Center, it is to a parent. And that's where that former student is. So when we go to approve this, we'll just say the sale of the student wheelchair. You can cross off to Hodan Center. But this is a student who no longer is in our district. And this was purchased particularly for this student, and it was fitted for this student. We don't have any other students that would fit this need. This student is still in need of it, and we would like to sell it to the family at whatever we thought the going price for that type of equipment is used. And so that's for both of these next two items.
Okay. Is there any questions? Would somebody move on E, please?
I'll move to approve the sale of a used student wheelchair as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was Sarah and Brad.
Andrews,
Yes,
sorry, I couldn't really,
that was yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Henderman, yes, Cole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
all right. And so striking
That was a
to the Hodan Center from this one as well then? Aaron?
Yes.
Okay, approve the sale of a used stander. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the sale of a used stander as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Alright. Andrews,
Yes,
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Henderman, yes, Cole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
item 8, personnel, approve the addition of summer school administrator to the extra duty list in the district handbook, Aaron.
Yep, this is a position we actually thought, there was a staff member who was an aspiring administrator, and we thought this would be a position for her. This is what Brad actually did in Sun Prairie for a number of years. It's something that a lot of people can get some administrative experience in. They do all the scheduling with students and staff and work on transportation for all these different things. And this is just something that we want to add as we're beefing up our summer school. I know this year we're about 50 our goal is to build this program so it's closer to 200 than it is to 50. And so with all that scheduling, and that person is available during those times every Monday through Thursday. So I'm recommending that we approve this and put this in as the district handbook as an extra duty.
Are there questions, board? Hearing none, would somebody move, please?
I'll move to approve the addition of summer school administrator to the extra duty list in the district handbook as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second. All right, Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Kinderman, yes, Paul,
No.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item B is approve Mr. Brad Lutz as the 2020 summer school administrator.
Yep, and he's been doing all those things that I just talked about already for about the last 2 weeks, including working on transportation and all the scheduling. And this year's a little different because there are a lot of individual probably requests that in future years it'll be a little more standardized, but we appreciate that he's done that already. So I'm recommending that we approve him for that position.
To that effect, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Mr. Brad Lutz as the 2020 summer school administrator as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Kinderman, yes, Paul,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item C, approve the addition of adding before and after school bus supervisors to assist with social distancing during the pandemic.
This is probably something we'll put in that appendix, not so much in the extra duty list, because it's not something we anticipate keeping, but we want to try to look at a way to assist those students in transportation to make sure it's a safe environment for them. This was our number one, I shouldn't say number one fear of parents on the survey was that we'll go virtual again. Number two was how is my kid going to be transported safely? And so we feel that by having a staff member on the bus, because we can't, being a bus driver is hard. You have to get everybody there safely, keep the road in between the lines, and they're trying to holler back at kids to make sure they sit down. Normally, that's a tough job. Now we feel that that's impossible. So we'd rather have somebody on the bus and have them monitor that seating assignment and monitor social distancing to make sure our kids are safe on the bus. And we don't feel it's fair to put that on the bus driver. So we're looking at, I think we have either 7 regular buses, 7 or 8 routes before and after school. And some are shorter and some are longer, but we're looking at having an AM supervisor and a PM while this is still going on. So maybe it's a semester, or maybe we have to do it both semesters. We're not quite sure. But how we go about paying them, is it by the hour or is it by the route? Those are some things that we have to work out. We just wanted to get permission from you to start looking at that, or in that way.
And I guess I'd add in at least what I took away from the meeting with Drew from Stratton Buses is that a bus that's got a 72 passenger capacity is going to be 24. And
24 is about the max.
And that if Brad's the first one on the bus, he has to go all the way to the assigned seat in the far back of the bus. And then the next one comes on, they get in the next assigned seat, and that you got to stay there. And that's where the assistant came in, that, first on, last off. So,
And kids are going to look at that and say, well, that's not fair. I'm on first and I'm off last. They're right, but it is the safest way to transport kids.
I don't know, I followed the Dickeyville bus to Cuba City quite a few times, and it looks like popcorn in there sometimes. It's definitely something that we should really have to consider.
That's our real popcorn bus.
The other thing we had talked about in that transportation committee, and I know we'll come up with our recommendations in August, but if we have to temp those kids, will that assistant be the one temping kids entering the bus, or?
Yes, they would be the one to do that. Yeah.
good point. They also would have to take the temperature of the student.
So we'd have to have enough equipment provided to do that.
Are there any other questions regarding the need? If not, would somebody move?
I'll move to approve the addition of adding before and after school bus supervisors to assist with social distancing during COVID-19 pandemic as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Henderman, yes. Paul,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item D, approve all Cuba City School District administrative contracts for language only.
Right, so this,
And from our personnel, if I may
you bet.
just interject, from the personnel committee meeting, we were in closed session and we discussed all of the contracts. And at this time, it is only language, because with regard to pay, we don't know what we're going to do yet. Because we heard that there might be everything from a state employee pay freeze to finding out, what we can do, whether it's CPI or whatever. So it's just more or less giving them a contract.
We do administrative contracts in July, just like we do teacher contracts in May. Yeah, but we just issue it and say, yes, you have this. So if teachers and support staff aren't gonna get a raise, admin's not getting a raise. So this is just language.
Thank you. Questions, board? Would somebody move?
I would move to approve the Cuba City School District administrative contracts for language only as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes?
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Henderman, yes. Paul,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Committee reports, budget and finance, Chuck?
We had the meeting beforehand, you try and, see where we're gonna end up, just try and get our costs down as possible, which we're trying to do with the boilers and the way it was replaced, so I think we're doing pretty good.
Anything else?
No, we'll probably have another one, Heather, you think we'll have another one in October? At the next one?
Building and grounds?
I'd just like to thank Ben, and the crew, and for everything that they've done. We've worked with them a little bit, trying to make things better. Anytime we can do it in-house, we save us money, and that's what we wanna do.
Okay. Curriculum instruction and assessment. The meeting was in June. Anything to report?
Nope. I think we went through that. Just Stacy presented kind of what we did, what the curriculum teams did this year. And then Stacy and the principals said, okay, then this is what we're planning on doing this year. We're focusing on differentiation with students, which is something our teachers have asked us for more PD in that. And we'll continue our work on assessments.
And I will just add that it was amazing the amount of work that they got done, considering how the year ended and all the other challenges our instructional staff had.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Megan. Personnel, we met in June. We met a week ago, I believe, discussing contracts and pay. Anything you want to add, Dan or Don?
It was a good meeting and we got quite a bit done, but I think it was just, everything was
We're
good.
kind of waiting on some dust to settle here.
Talked a lot, but didn't get a lot done.
The policy,
I believe, I thought we were gonna meet in September. I just found out we're gonna meet in August. Probably focus most on Title IX. So Title IX, there was a big Title IX change. And Title IX deals with a lot of different issues. The changes are all around sexual harassment in the workplace. And so that's where a lot of the policies are gonna have to change, and some professional development is gonna have to be designed and things. But they did just tell us that they're gonna move that up, so we have that before the first day of school.
okay. Technology, transportation, Dan?
We also met last week, had big discussions with the bus company. They are providing busing for summer school now, so that's good news.
And we'll probably have another transportation meeting soon.
Foundation, did not meet. Is there anything else?
We probably won't meet again till December,
January.
it's January,
We
okay,
like to
yeah, we
do
wanna,
that.
we wanna meet after the first of the year.
CISA 3, I think, again, as our administrative team, I think they've been obviously focused on all of the stuff regarding COVID and providing services for school districts, so I don't have anything else. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright,
Thank you,
all.
everybody.
Have a great night, see you, Megan.
thanks for being flexible, everybody.
You betcha.
You bet, Megan. Thank you.
They're for you.
Okay.
Yep.